All right, it looks like we've got a decent amount of people here. So hi everyone, and welcome to Career Chats Live, Longwood's LinkedIn Influencers Week, brought to you by Longwood University. So Longwood is a co-educational public school with offering more than 100 majors, minors, and concentrations in the heart of Virginia. So if you haven't heard of us before, you will in the fall, because we are hosting the 2016 U.S. Vice Presidential Debate on October 4th. So if you'd like to learn more, check us out at debate.longwood.edu. So my name is Paige Rollins, the Assistant Director of Live Digital Events here at Longwood University, and I'm so excited that we've come to the end of this week because we've had awesome presenters, and Stacy's going to close us out strong. So I'm here with Stacy Zapar, founder of Tenfold, and known as the most connected woman on LinkedIn. She holds the record for about 8 years, I think, as she shares how to build your social media personal brand. So just some housekeeping. So Stacy's going to give her presentation, and there'll be plenty of time for question and answer at the end. So you can either do so in the Q&A button at the top of your screen, or the chat bar on the side, or just talk with others and build your own personal network. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Stacy, and we'll get started.
Hi there, everybody. Can you hear me? All right, I'm excited to be here. We're going to talk about personal branding today, which is always fun. And I usually speak to recruiter audiences, so it's fun to speak to a more general audience today. I assume we have a nice mix of college students, job seekers, career professionals, you name it, and a little bit of everything and everybody in between. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see if I can get this to work here. And pull up my keynote for you and hit play. Can you guys see my screen?
You're perfect.
All right, good, yay. Well, perfect. So we're going to talk about personal branding. We're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about how do we put our best foot forward and kind of shape the way that we're perceived by an outside audience and others in our industry or outside of our industry. So the way I always like to start my presentations is with a little bit of personal branding myself. And so obviously I'm the founder of my own company, and I speak and I do all these fun things, but there's more to us than just, the worker bee in us. We are a total person. We bring that to work with us and on social media. So I always take a few minutes to share, a couple of seconds anyway, to share a little bit about my life outside of work. Let's see if I can get this to go through here. All right. This is my daughter, Madeline. She's 9 years old. She is a sweetheart. She is polite and soft-spoken and a little dancer, and that's her little dance outfit. And yeah, she's my little sweetheart. This is Colin. He is 4 years old. He is not always such a sweetheart. He's a handful. Yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of my days are spent wrangling him around, actually. This is my family as I project on social media, going to the zoo, all sorts of fun family activities together, etc. And hold on one second. Here we go. And of course, this is my real life that maybe I don't always project on social media. My kids jumping on the bed Gangnam Style on Sunday mornings. So that's a little bit about my life outside of my work and travel schedule. A little bit about my professional background. I'll do this slide pretty quickly so we can get right to the heart of it. I've been a recruiter since 1997. I have worked for mostly tech companies here in San Diego. I love social media, and that's, I guess, why we're talking about social today. Was an early adopter on LinkedIn back in the day. As Paige mentioned a moment ago, became the most connected woman on LinkedIn in 2008, and have since become a LinkedIn influencer and have accumulated a little over 100,000 followers there. So also love Twitter, got really active on Twitter in 2010, started building my network and sharing content there. And I also started a little blog back in the day, initially aimed at job seekers and networkers and LinkedIn tips. And then when I started my business, I sort of changed the focus to be more of a recruiter audience. But that blog passed 1 million views a couple of years ago now. Love to speak on stage and at conferences and in webinars, and today included. Been featured in some pretty cool magazines and online periodicals and articles. My clients are amazing. I've worked with Zappos and Netflix and TripAdvisor and Booking.com and Restoration Hardware, and about to do some work with Amazon and Best Buy and gosh, you name it. A whole bunch of good companies that I get to work with. I have the best job in the whole wide world. I'm also on the advisory boards for several HR technology companies. Love to help shape the products that we use as recruiters and as job seekers, make it better for everybody, improve the experience, make it more efficient, etc. And I did start my own company a few years ago. I do consulting and training around employer branding, social recruiting, sourcing. I work with recruiting audiences, teaching them all about social for finding candidates, attracting candidates, and everything in between. All right, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. This is the best part. We're going to talk a little bit about personal branding, of course. What is it? Why is it important? What is your brand? I want every single person on this call today to really feel like they understand their brand, and or at least start the wheels turning in defining what your brand is and how you can really leverage it and amplify it to the audience that you want to reach. So how do you want to be known? We're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. We're going to talk about the how-tos, right? How are you going to build your brand? I'm going to break this down. This is by far the longest section of the presentation today on how do you build out your brand and what are some best practices and what are some tools and technologies that you can do to make it easier for you to manage and keep that up and be as effective as you can. And then a little bit about, of course, social media. Where do you want to share? How do you share there? How do you engage? So some of the where, why, and how on social. All right, starting with personal brand, of course. Let's start by defining it and kind of getting a little bit into the nitty-gritty about what your brand is. And some people are, kind of scoff or roll their eyes. Oh, personal brand, that sounds cheesy. It's fine. You don't have to call it your personal brand. You can call it your personal reputation, your professional reputation, or you can just think of it as the way that people think about you whenever your name comes up. Really, that's at the end of the day what we're talking about, whether you want to call it this or not. Your brand is essentially how you're viewed by others, how you're remembered. What is the experience that other people have when they talk to you, engage with you, interact with you, whether it's professional or personal. All that blends together to make up your quote-unquote personal brand. What if when you're not there? What are people saying and thinking about you? Those conversations and those thoughts are happening. How do you want to shape that? How do you want to how do you want to tweak that to make that more positive or more aligned to your professional goals, right? So who do you want to know about you? That's another thought. Right now, you might be really well known in a small circle, but you want to expand that reach and have more of that impact on a wider audience. So we're going to talk about all of those things today. Some of the benefits of a strong personal brand. There was a really great infographic on feldmancreative.com. I've got the link here in gray print in the corner if you guys do want to go hop on and read the rest of that. It was probably the most thorough, excellent, well done summary of personal branding that I've seen. And I thought that this was a nice little list. But some of the benefits of a strong brand, these are whether you're in sales or whether you're in you're running your own business or you just want to move up in your career, whatever that is, having a strong brand is only going to be a benefit to you in your professional life. So these are some of those. I'm not going to read them all to you, but these are some of those benefits. So let's define what your brand is and help you so if you're taking notes today or if you have a pen and paper, go ahead and grab that. I'm going to ask you to write down some things, or at least you can kind of write down a little to-do list to do after the call today. So what's your brand? How do other people perceive you? What do you think that is? Think hard. Ask yourself those hard questions as to what it takes. What are they thinking? How do they feel? What are the emotions that they're feeling? What are the first things that come to mind? How do you want to be perceived? And what are you really passionate and knowledgeable about? What can you do to be to share your subject matter expertise with the outside world or get yourself known to an audience that isn't aware of you yet? What makes you truly different and unique? Those are really that's an important angle to think about. I know recruiting, and a lot of people know recruiting, but you know what? I have some unique thoughts and perspectives and ideas and twists on the way that I do things. There's a little bit something special or something different or something unique that you do that not everyone else in your industry does. And you need to really think about that and really delve into those areas and be willing to share those and put those out there. It's a little risky sometimes to say, hey, I do things this way, and this is what's unique or different about me. That's okay. Own that. Embrace it. In fact, lead with it. That's what I recommend. Otherwise, you're just another face in the crowd, and that's not a good thing. What do you think your audience really wants to hear or really wants from you? Or where do you think that there might be a gap in the industry, right? A lot of startup companies are like, oh, I have this great idea, and then they go to launch it or to start it up or get funding or what have you, and they realize there's already 72 other companies doing that exact same thing, and maybe they're not even profitable. You kind of need to think about your brand and what you offer to the market as well. Maybe there's areas where there's really a gap and there's a void, if you will, in people who provide a certain expertise or provide commentary or thought leadership in a certain area. So maybe that's an area where you're like, hey, that's really interesting to me. I don't see a lot of people talking about this. This is something that I want to study up on or get some hands-on experience, do some project work on. So make a list, and you might not be able to do that on the fly right this second. I understand that. But make a list, be thinking about that. So how do people perceive you, and how do you want to be perceived? And what is your brand? If you can actually write down a list, I think that really helps you stay on target and do a lot of the other things that we're going to talk about today. So what are your branding goals? What is the goal of having a personal brand? Why are you listening to this call today? What does it even matter? Maybe you're looking for a job, or you're a college student, you're getting ready to graduate or apply to internships. Maybe you're already in a career, you're an alumni of Longwood, or you're just somebody who saw this link on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, and that's okay too. And you've been working X number of years and you're ready to keep moving forward in your career. Maybe you're in biz dev or sales and you're like, wow, how do I really kind of attract an audience that's interested in what I have to share so that I can convert more business for my employer or for my own business? Maybe you just want to be recognized more in your industry. Maybe you think you've got some really great ideas to share. You have a way to kind of raise the bar on the way things are being done in your industry, and you'd like to have a platform to share that. So that's maybe another goal for you. Maybe your goal is not even one of these. Maybe you have a different reason for wanting to build your brand. Whatever that is, go ahead and make a list not only of what you think your brand is, but what the goals are of that brand. Those two things together kind of keep you on track when it comes to some of the activities that it takes to build and support and amplify your brand. Here's a hard one or a fun one, I don't know, depending on your perspective. But find a friend or a mentor, and I'm not just talking like your girlfriend who's always sweet or nice to you. Like, you need to find the friend that's like, oh my gosh, Stacey, you have something in your tooth, or oh my gosh, Stacey, you really shouldn't wear that outfit. It's not flattering. Like, we all have those friends, and those are the ones that like your true friends that will just tell it to you straight. That's the kind of friend that you need. Maybe it's a coworker friend that you go and have lunch with and you're not personal friends all the time, but she's a straight shooter or he's a straight shooter and will tell it to you like it is. Maybe it's your professor in college. I had a couple that I still keep in touch with, and I don't know if I should admit how many years it's been since I went to college, but let's put it this way, my 25th high school reunion is in a couple months. So there are still college professors that I keep in touch with that I absolutely consider mentors. So ask them. Say, hey, when my name comes to mind, or when I come to mind, what are 3 or 5 things that immediately pop into your head? What are some of the words? What are some emotions? What are some areas of expertise, or whatever it is? Make a list and be honest with me. Ask this person, what are some of my strengths professionally, personally, socially, whatever it is? What are some areas that you think I could maybe work on? What do I do a little bit too much of, or maybe not enough of? Or maybe I should stop sharing, political posts on Facebook all the time. Who knows what it is? Everybody's like, oh, I mean, I do it too, more than I probably should. We're all guilty of that to some extent. But sometimes the things that we're doing, we don't even realize that we're putting people off, or that we're, being detrimental to our online reputation or our actual reputation. So once you get that list, maybe you ask 2 or 3 friends. Once you get those lists built out, and again, push back, make them be honest. They're going to start off by just sugarcoating and being sweet. But once you get those lists, compare them with the lists and the goals that you've built, and see if they align, and see where the discrepancies are, and then you kind of know where you need to work a little bit more. Google your name. This is always a fun thing. I won't tell you, but anyway, I won't tell that story. But my maiden name was actually, there was a famous person who was perhaps not in support of my brand, and we all had to Google our name in a class I took a few years back, and everybody was cracking up at what my results were. This was before I was married. But luckily, with a name like Stacey Zapar, I tend to own all the results that say Stacey Zapar. But if you open an incognito window in your browser, I use Chrome, and if you go over to the top right-hand corner, you'll see 3 or 4 lines up in the corner. Click that, and it'll say open an incognito window. What that does basically is it takes you out of the signed in version of Google, and it's completely anonymous. It's not biased in any way as to anything that you've ever seen before, anything your friends are sharing or you're sharing. It's completely unbiased, if you will. So open that incognito window and just Google your name. Maybe you Google your nickname. I might Google Stacey Zapar. I might Google Stacey Donovan Zapar. Sometimes I'm referred to one or the other. Sometimes I Google Stacey Zapper, Z-A-P-P-E-R, or different ways, or Stacey with an E, different ways that people spell it. But it's interesting. See what you find. What pops up? Almost all of the views happen on that first page. There's like 46% of all the click-throughs go on that first result. And then the next 2 or 3 are like the other 7 or 60% or what is it, 50%. And then like page 2 onward is like 4% of all the clicks. Like pretty much what's on that first page is really what matters. Are you proud and happy and excited about all the things that are showing up on that first page? Or is there stuff on there that you're like, wow, that's not even accurate, or that's old, or I don't want that showing. And there's that, it happens to all of us, right? I have a few webinars that I did very early on in my career. I was very nervous, I was stuttering and stumbling, and like, I don't want that to be the first thing that people see when they go to Google my name. Like, I would love them to see more of the recent stuff where I kind of have my flow and feel a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera. So whatever it is it accurate? Is it positive? Is this how you'd like to be known? Maybe you have results showing up from your previous role or your previous career and you've sort of switched direction. Now you're kind of doing more of something else, but this old stuff is still showing up, and that's not supporting your brand. So I'm going to tell you a little bit later in this talk about how you can actually control what those results are. Unfortunately, you can't pay Google or tell them to take anything down, but there are ways to take the things that you like and boost those up, and there are ways to take things that you're like, I'm not so much wanting those on the first page, and kind of bump them down. And I'm going to show you about a tool that does that. And then don't be afraid to click across those other tabs as well right there. So you see videos, news, shopping, images, what have you. I don't click on shopping. I don't think I'm selling anything. But videos, news, images, click through all those and see what's coming up and make sure that it's positive. And maybe you'll see a video from something that you posted on YouTube or Facebook or something showing up somewhere that you're like, oh, that's from college and whatever, and I was chugging beers or whatever it is, and you kind of are like, maybe I need to go down and take that off or change the privacy settings on that, whatever it is. You'll be surprised what you see. So don't do it right this second, obviously. You're going to miss everything else I talk about. But maybe on your little notepad that you're taking notes on, you can make a little note to yourself to Google your name in a sec. All right. The third section, this is where it gets meaty and good. If you're taking notes, here's where you're going to start taking some real notes here, and we're going to start banging out some how-tos and best practices and some tips, etc. All right, content marketing. This sounds so boring and dry. I tried to find an image that was a little bit fun. But content marketing, and I will actually read this one since it's a definition and it's pretty straightforward, but it's a strategic marketing approach that often, of course, used by businesses that's focused on creating and distributing content, valuable, relevant, and consistent content. And whether that's either to attract or retain a very clearly defined audience. You notice there's a lot of like consistent, valuable, targeted, things are really well defined. That's kind of the overarching theme here. And ultimately to drive profitable customer action. Well, in our case, we may not have profitable customer action as our goal, but these same sort of concepts do apply to personal branding. Whatever our goals are, if we're sharing content that aligns to those goals, then people will the conversion or the desired outcome that we want will take place, even if that's not profitable customer action. This whole idea of sharing valuable, relevant, consistent content to a defined audience that we want to reach, that's what we're going to talk about as far as content sharing today. And there's going to be more we talk about, but that's kind of what content's all about. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts. We're going to start with the do's. It's really important. I see this as a really common mistake, especially on social media as I'm looking at folks and trying to follow them. I've realized in my day that I'm having conversations with people on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, I talk to this person every day on Twitter, and their name is like, whatever, Recruiting Wizard. I'm just making up a name right now. I apologize if there is actually a Recruiting Wizard. I'm just making that up. I don't know who you are. But I'm talking to this person every day on social, and they have this, obscure picture of a wizard or something, and they have this name, and I'm like, okay, this person really gets it. They're really social. They have good ideas. We're talking to them. And then I'm over here on Facebook, and I'm friends with somebody, and I'm like talking to them too. And it might be months or years even before I realize that Recruiting Wizard is the same as this person that's my Facebook friend. It's really important, if you can, get your name as your Twitter handle. Get your name for your Instagram. Keep a consistent name across all the social profiles. Whatever your profile picture is on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, if you're using whatever channels you're using for professional and personal branding, make sure that you have a consistent picture across. That way people can connect all the dots, and every time they have an impression. It's like anytime that your picture is served up to them on social media, it sinks in. It takes something like 7 or 9 impressions before people even remember who you are. So the more that you can be consistent across all those social channels, the more likely you're to stick in someone's mind, like, oh, I think I talked to her last week, or I talked to him last month, or whatever. the more you can be consistent by being the same across all the channels, the more you're going to reinforce your brand. Profile photo, name, tagline. I mean, I didn't even realize that day that I was like, oh, I was looking at the list. I'm like, oh, I just passed Barack Obama on LinkedIn. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Oh, wow, I just realized I'm like number 9, but there's no women above me. I'm technically the most connected woman. Sounds cheesy now. It was a thing, whatever. Then as a recruiter, it was really important to have a big network. They didn't have tools where we could search the whole database. So the bigger your network, the better I was at my job. And I don't even know why I put it in there, my LinkedIn headline, like most connected woman on LinkedIn, woo! Anyway, that thing stuck, and now people are still, like, Paige just now introduced me that way. What is it, 8 years later? So it's funny how a little tagline that seems innocuous or harmless or, meaningless or silly or fun at the time really can stick. So, and it really has led to getting me speaking gigs and webinars and training and business. People are like, oh yeah, I've heard of you. You're that most connected lady on the social media. And I'm like, close enough, yeah. So it's funny how these things tend to stick. So maybe you think of a tagline that sort of sums you up, and try not to be too cheesy. Mine was a little cheesy, but it was 2008. It was back before Facebook or any of that stuff, so I didn't know any better. Anyway, fill out your profile completely. When you're filling out your profile, your summary section on LinkedIn or your bio on Twitter or whatever it is, think about keywords, think about branding, think about SEO. What are people going to plug in to find someone like you? You have 160 characters on Twitter. I see a lot of people that are like, lover of cats and hater of hot dogs or something cutesy, and they put a period. I'm like, that's not helping them from branding. It's not helping them for SEO. It's not helping them reach more. It's fun and cute, but they're just using it for personal. Who cares? But if you are using it for work at all, do slip in a little bit of personal, slip in a little bit of professional. Think about keywords. Maybe you put a hashtag in there. Maybe you put an @ sign and kind of link out to your business or whatever it is. But really use all 160 of those characters. And everywhere you go, try to make sure you're thinking not only from a branding but also SEO perspective. I think that's super important and not something that everyone remembers to do. Make it really easy for others to contact you, to connect with you, to follow you. Wherever you are on your blog, remember at the bottom to put all your social links. Follow me here, or in your email signature, of course. We see that a lot. If you're looking for a job and you do not put your email address right on your LinkedIn profile where everyone can read it, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. Otherwise, people have to pay $10 to send you an in-mail into your LinkedIn inbox that you may or may not see, because not everyone's super active on LinkedIn all the time. People may skip right by you, but if you put your email, or if you feel comfortable, put your phone number, whatever it is, put your Twitter where people can tweet you, put your contact info in a very easy to see place on your profile, especially if you're looking for a job or if you want people to reach out to you, if you're in sales or biz dev. Make it really easy. Don't create barriers that people and hoops that people have to jump through to reach you. I see this really commonly in job seekers. They're like, oh, I didn't think to put my email on there. I'm like, well, yeah, you should. It's a good idea. Don't be afraid to cross-promote. On Twitter, you can talk about, hey, I'm doing this. I just shared this post on LinkedIn. Or on LinkedIn, you can say, hey, guys, whatever, follow me on Twitter. You can do a little bit of that. Go a little easy on some of the self-promotion and cross-promotion. I think it's pretty safe to promote anything on Twitter, but vice versa. LinkedIn's gotten a little spammy, so I'm a little bit gun-shy about some of the promotion that's happening there these days. I'm sure everyone on the call kind of knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, but be consistent. You need to post regularly. You can't just post once and then not again for a year, or once every 3 months. I will admit I am, the shoemaker's children have no shoes. I do not blog nearly as often as I used to, simply because I do a lot of these webinars and speaking, and I'm up on stage, and I tend to pour out all my content this way as opposed to in writing. But in the beginning, I absolutely blogged religiously and consistently, and if I could wave a magic wand, I wish that I could really get back into the blogging habit, because I think it's so strong for supporting your brand, supporting your business, getting more folks kind of in your network, etc. So be sure to definitely do that. And I'm still good about posting regularly to social media. I don't think that will ever change. All right, Lady Gaga, Born This Way. This song's a little old now, but the concept still applies. You need to be real, you need to be you need to be authentic. This is not the time to fake it till you make it. When you're sharing content and putting out kind of your best foot forward out on social media, don't pretend to know something that you don't. Don't pretend to I'm so philanthropic, I'm so into pets and cat. Don't try to find a cause, or don't try to pretend to know more about tech than you actually do, or don't philanthropic. Sorry, I think I just said something different. Anyway, but really just be you. Stick to who you are. Stick to what you know. Stick to what you're passionate about, and that will come through very transparently to your audience. If you're trying to like pretend to do this thing over here and because you think you're supposed to, it's going to ring flat. It's not going to resonate with your audience. You're not going to even be able to keep it up because it's just not interesting to you, or you don't know anything about it to even share that. So maybe that's an area where you can start to research and kind of get experience, but don't try to be something that you're not. That's just a given anytime we're talking about personal branding. Highlight your differentiators. I'm sure back in the day, Cindy Crawford like hated her mole probably growing up. She probably hated it. Or David Letterman had that gap in his tooth. But when he smiled and laughed, or when he smiles and laughs, like that's what you remember. Iman has this incredibly long neck, which again, she probably got teased as a kid for, but eventually she became a model and became known for this as one of her most beautiful trademarks and something that was really unique and different about her. So all these people are kind of known for something that might even be perceived as a flaw by someone else or in themselves. But really, they took it, they owned it, this is part of who they are. And I think when you're talking about personal brand or any kind of branding in the marketing world, talking about the things that make you different, is really a smart strategy. The things that make you different are the things that make you special. I absolutely believe that. So don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly a little bit. All right. You have to know your brand, which you're going to do, or you may have already done, or you may have your list kind of getting worked on, but you also need to know your audience. Who are you speaking to, and where do they hang out, and what do they like to hear, and what do they want to hear? Where and what and how and all those things. If you know your audience pretty well and you have them clearly defined, then it's going to be much easier to communicate with them. So what is authentically interesting to you to talk about? That should be pretty easy. I already know what mine are. I'm going to share what mine are in a second if that's interesting to you in any way. What's interesting to your target audience? Who are you trying to reach? What are those goals that you set for your personal brand? And how do you reach them? How do you share content that's interesting? As a recruiter, I've recruited for tech. So I used to share content around tech stuff. I'm not super techy. I can write a little code and such, but I would share tech gadget stuff, or I would share kind of industry news about tech companies that were merging. I would talk about the things in tech that were interesting to me, and hopefully I was sharing content that would encourage people in the tech world to follow me back, because ultimately I recruit tech people. So that's what I'm talking a little bit about target audience. And your audience might be something different. Maybe you want to be known to industry influencers and you want to share their content and engage with them. Think about what kind of stuff would resonate with them. And then what content really showcases your personal passions and your strengths and the things that make you different, and overall support those branding goals, not just things that are interesting. I could talk about Game of Thrones all day long. In fact, sometimes I do. But that may not be really what's going to get me to where I need to be personal branding wise. So for me, for instance, I have several things that I talk about from a branding perspective. Social media, that's been a big thing for me for a long time. As soon as I joined Twitter, I was talking about social and LinkedIn and networking tips and grow your network and those sorts of things. Social recruiting, how do we use social media as part of our recruiting efforts and our employer branding and recruitment marketing efforts? Geek Pride, I was in the band. I was president of the math club. These were things, I was in the marching band, not just the band. I mean, I wore a big fuzzy hat. For many years, I kind of hid the geeky side of me away. I'm a gamer. I love to do these online games, and I love to kill zombies. I'm number 3 in the world, zombie killer on the Walking Dead Assault game, or at least I used to be, until my husband made me delete it off my phone. Anyway, but I used to hide these things under a bushel. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to own that. I have geeky tendencies. I'm kind of nerdy. I'm okay with that. And I kind of weave that into my content. Again, it's who I am, but it also resonates with a lot of the people out there that are my target audience in tech. And, we can geek out on gaming stuff, and it gives them a reason to keep following me. And then, girl power stuff. I always talk about STEM and girl power and, women's empowerment. And, these are things that are really interesting and important to me. And I think they overall kind of come together and support my brand. A little bit of mom life stuff comes in now. I don't share exactly where my kids go to school or those sorts of things. On social, I tend to keep it friends only on Facebook, that kind of thing. But, that's part of my brand too, being a mom, being a family, being a wife. Those are all things. So you can have a little bit of that personal and that professional swirled together. This sounds super boring and dry. This is a little bit of an elevated thing, but you saw those 5 or 6 things that I talk about consistently. Those are technically considered pillars of content in the marketing world. You don't have to call them anything, that fancy, but it just means basically these are the categories that I'm going to talk about on a consistent basis. If you just talk about anything and everything, you can kind of get lost in the weeds. But if you're like, hey, these are the 5 things that I want to make sure that I talk about at least once or twice a week to kind of reinforce my brand, reinforce my branding goals. It doesn't have to always be super contrived and overly planned out, but I kind of have these audiences and these kind of little pockets of friends on social, and we talk about these same things, and it keeps them coming back. I have something to talk about with them. We have these commonalities. You can even subscribe to publications, maybe TechCrunch or Mashable Tech or PC World or whatever it is. If you're in tech and you want to share content around tech, you can follow tech articles. If you're really into pop culture, maybe you follow Mashable and BuzzFeed and I don't know what. Whatever your brand is, you can follow articles specific to that topic or online publications. You can get it delivered to your email. You can follow them on Twitter. You can follow them on Facebook, on LinkedIn, you name it. But if you get all that content coming in, then you'll have sort of this pipeline, if you will, of stuff that you can now share out with your audience. You don't have to create it all yourself. You can just share other stuff that's on brand. Tell your story. I feel like this is one that's, that's often overlooked. People are so busy tweeting out stuff and they're just sharing stuff all the time. But really, put that personal angle in there. There's no more interesting content to me than when people relay their experiences, their thoughts, their opinions on the matter. Be careful with opinions, like I said, politics, religion, these sorts of things. Maybe you want to go easy there. Your decision, your brand, you own it. But you can't be a thought leader or an industry leader or a leader of any kind if you don't have unique perspectives. And if you're afraid to share them, that's going to limit you as well. So have some opinions and put them out there, or have some insights and share them with other people. Give and add value to your audience. It makes you more relevant. It makes you more interesting. It makes you targeted. All those things that we talked about with the definition of that content marketing, how everything's very clearly defined and really specific. Provide value. You've had life experiences. Even if you're in college, you probably have had life experiences that would be interesting to someone else. Maybe it's an incoming freshman, I don't know. Or maybe it's an internship or a college class or a project that you worked on that would be interesting to your future employers. Blog about that, share that out and say, hey, this is what I learned and this is what went great and this did even better than we thought it would. And you know what, we kind of messed up here, and if I had it to do over again, I might do this differently. Even if you're junior, if you've been working for some time, I'm sure you have countless stories around this. But other people can benefit from your life experiences and your work experiences, whether they're positive or negative. And this is a big thing. Speak to your audience, right? Like I said, if you're trying to find a job, it's probably not a good idea to do a lot of like you is spelled with just a U, the word R is spelled with just an R, everything in lowercase, whatever it is. Be kind of thinking about who you're trying to reach and make sure that your communication style, the content you're sharing, where you're sharing it. If you're looking for a job and you're only posting on Snapchat all day, that might not work either. So really make sure that you're speaking and reaching your audience where they hang out and how they want to be reached out to. All right, this one's my favorite slide probably on the whole deck, but you need to rock your social media mullet. And on that note, I'm gonna take a quick sip. What I mean by that, a mullet, right? I went to school when when I was in high school, mullets were really a thing. A little bit of business in the front, a little bit of party in the back, right? Kentucky waterfall, or I've heard some other names, Tennessee top hat. Anyway, these are horrible. No offense to Kentucky and Tennessee. I think I went to school in the South and there was a little Southern rivalry, so these terms came up. Anyway, don't be a one note. Have a little bit of personal brand stuff, a little bit of business stuff. The more you interweave these things, the more interesting you will be to your audience. If you just talk shop all day long, like work, it's not going to be interesting to you. It's not going to be interesting to your audience. I'm not telling you to share your date of birth and your kids' pictures at the pool or your social security number or your address where you live. I'm not asking you to be overly personal, but even if you just talk about, hey, what are you guys doing this weekend? I'm going to be going out to the movies and I'm going to go see this thing. Has anyone seen it? Or has anyone seen Stranger Things on Netflix? It's this new series. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. I am obsessed, by the way, with Stranger Things. I need to go out and talk about it. But it kind of supports my geek pride thing. It's something I'm passionate about. It makes me relatable as a person. I'm not just sharing recruiting and social media tips all day. That's kind of boring. No one wants to read only that all the time. I know people that have a separate personal profile and a separate work profile, and that never works out. I've never heard anyone say that that was a good idea. Never once. They try it, and then they ultimately give up, and then the one that's personal, they start weaving a little bit of work into. Your personal stuff, if you just have a personal one, that's where all the interesting stuff is happening. Your work one, you're going to end up initially posting a lot of work stuff, and then it's going to die on the vine because every time you log into that network, you're just going to want to go to the fun one. And you're just more interesting in general if it's a little bit blended together. It can be 90-10, 10-90. On LinkedIn, of course, you want to go more 90-10 on business versus personal. Maybe on Twitter, it's any combination thereof is fine. Maybe Facebook, you want to go 90% personal, 10% work. That's kind of changing, though, as time goes on. I'm seeing a lot more professional networking happening on Facebook. But kind of mix it up a little bit. So you're much more interesting, and you want to be interesting to your audience. That keeps them coming back for more. Hashtags, love hashtags. Especially if you have a small social network initially, this is sort of your lifeline to the outside world, where people who are not following you on social will be able to find your content because you hashtag it with whatever it is that that topic is. And they click on that hashtag anywhere on the web, they may be driven right to your piece of content or your post or your tweet or your whatever. So hashtags are sort of a way to not only reinforce the content that you talk about on a consistent basis, more of an emphasis tool, but it's also a keyword searchability tool that allows other people to find you and hopefully follow you and continue to follow you. I started with 0 followers on Twitter like everybody else, and now I'm up over 40,000, and almost all of them are recruiting people or tech people or the things that I mentioned that I talk about consistently. It's those kind of people, and now I have this big following, and I haven't done anything. I've never bought followers, or I just consistently share content that's kind of sticks to these buckets. I use my hashtags, people find me, and there we go. So now I have this big network, and I love it, and it's led to business opportunities and starting my own business and all these fun things. So be sure to think about hashtags, especially when you're just starting out. Develop a routine. I'm one of those people that if I don't remember to block time on my calendar, I forget to do that thing. Whether it's exercise, which I haven't blocked my calendar in years, so I don't exercise ever, or lunch, like today. I realized when I was talking to Paige before this call, I'm like, wow, I forgot to eat lunch today because I didn't put it on my calendar. So develop a routine and stick to it. If you block calendar, maybe you block Friday afternoons because it's kind of a mush time and nobody really wants to have meetings or do real work then, you're kind of checked out. Maybe you block 3 to 5 o'clock every Friday and just queue up all your posts for the following week on social media. Or maybe that's when you blog. Or maybe that's when you have a glass of wine and, I've always told you, write, buzz, and edit sober. I don't know, a friend of mine who runs a blog told me that one time. I thought that was clever. I don't do anything very well after a glass of wine, but evidently some people do. All right, so remember to engage every day, even if you're posting once a day or twice a day, or you're scheduling all your posts to go out over the next week at different times. The engagement has to really happen almost on a daily basis. If people talk to you or they comment or they ask you a question or they're like, hey, thanks for following me, you should at least respond back. That's what social media is all about, two-way communication. So even if you're not posting all the time, try to pop in there just for 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the afternoon before you leave for the day. See if anyone's talked to you on your social channels. Talk back. This is a best practice for sure. All right. You have to grow your network and expand your reach. I kind of alluded to this a moment ago, but if you have 27 Twitter followers, or if you have, 15 connections on LinkedIn, or however many, 100 connections even, you might as well go out in the middle of the woods and be like, I am so knowledgeable in XYZ, and I have these great thoughts to share, and no one can hear you. Really, without the audience, there's really very little point in sharing great content. Of course, in order to get more followers, you have to share great content. So sort of this chicken versus the egg kind of concept. I would say what I would do to grow your network is make sure that you're consistently following other people because they're more likely to follow you back. I'm thinking in a Twitter capacity at this point. Or go on LinkedIn and think about everyone you know in real life, whether it's coworkers, former coworkers, people from your college that you went to school with back in the day, the people from the garden club, the ladies from yoga class, your drinking buddies, your poker buddies, whatever it is, connect to everyone you know, and that's going to at least get that ball rolling. Twitter, same thing. Go ahead and follow everyone you know. Go out and start searching for people based on those kind of pillars of content that you want to talk about. Follow some industry leaders or influencers, if you will. Follow other people in that space. Start following them, retweeting them, and they're more likely to follow you back and share great content. The best way to grow your network is just to have something that people want to hear. It's going to keep them coming back for more. Here's some don'ts. Don't be an egghead. I see a lot of these silhouettes on Facebook still. Some of my friends, I'm like, why don't you update that? Or on Twitter, it's a little egg because they have birds, get it? Anyway, egghead. LinkedIn profiles that don't have a picture or they make it only visible to their first level connections, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. A name with a face is so much more inviting than just the standard stock whatever that pops up. In fact, LinkedIn has determined that profiles with a picture are 17 times more likely to get viewed and clicked on than a profile without a picture. So highly, highly recommend. And when you do it, make sure they're the same across the board. Don't just talk about yourself. This is another don't in the branding world. It's all about me, me, me. This is my post. I'm going to share my post all over the place. Me, 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 my content, my this. Make sure you blend in a little bit of content that adds value. Share other people's information. Share articles that are going to be helpful to your audience. Give back a little bit. Don't always make it about you. That comes through very quickly on social as well. And don't spam and engage in some of this kind of heavy self-promotion and some of these people that post the same thing in 17 different groups on LinkedIn or Facebook. Let's not do that. Let's not be that guy or that gal. That's always kind of frowned upon, and that doesn't help your brand in any way. This picture's a little grainy, but I love it and I use it all the time. I can't help it. But don't blast your audience. Don't just one-way communication and push marketing and push stuff all the time. That's not what social media is. Social media is two-way conversations. And if you're just blasting and people are liking or commenting or asking questions and you're ignoring them, you're not being social. If you just have something on auto post and it's just posting out jobs all day, you're not really doing social recruiting. Or if you're just posting out articles from this one blog all day long and you're not really the one doing it and there's no one home, people can tell that. So make sure if someone engages with you on social media that you engage back, especially in the beginning when you're building your audience. It's really imperative. Don't make it all about you. Like I said, you don't have to just talk about yourself. Think about your audience, mix it up, offer that value. A good rule of thumb with social media, and this is a big one, if you wouldn't post it on a billboard by the freeway, don't share it online. That's generally a good kind of, even if you think it's private, somebody can screenshot it, something might show up, a privacy setting might be changed. Facebook's changing their privacy settings all the time. You never know what's going to get out there. But in general, just kind of think twice and say, I'm going to flame this person real quick, or I'm going to make this comment in this one thread on this page on Facebook, and I don't know anyone in here. That stuff can absolutely come back to bite you. I've seen it many times. Another barometer is, if you wouldn't say it to grandma, don't say it online, that kind of thing. Google has a very, very long memory and a deep reach. So a lot of people can find stuff that you've said or done on Google or Facebook graph search that you had no idea that other people could see. And we've all learned this lesson the hard way a little bit, but it's really a good reminder. So if you have stuff out there that you've shared that you don't want to be shared, find it by Google searching. Go through your Facebook privacy settings and kind of scrub that stuff. If you're looking for a job, maybe you need to make sure you don't have so many of those party pictures from college. I'm not saying you can't have any. Make sure a real person, we all drink a little bit now and then or whatever and go to parties and hang out with friends. But, if it's all this stuff or there's pictures of you with, in bikinis, and maybe it's not a good time if you are actively job seeking. Maybe you need to turn that down because recruiters and hiring managers and businesses and customers, clients, they're all looking at this stuff. So you really need to be mindful of it. Here's 4 tools that I use for brand management. I use all of these actually. Brand Yourself is a great tool. It's the one that I mentioned that it will, for free, you get a certain number of profiles that it'll bump down the bad stuff, bump up the good stuff. You can pay for a premium account and have much more kind of control over those search results. If you did find anything that you're not too stoked about or found something that you think is really great but it's buried on page 3, they'll help you get it up onto page 1. Google Alerts, Mention, and Talkwalker, they're all the same. I keep hearing about Google Alerts being discontinued, but it still seems to keep on ticking, so I'm going to mention it. I've been hearing about it going away for 3 or 4 years now, and I still use it, and it still works. So, but these are social listening tools. Whenever you're mentioned online in a blog post, in a news article, some of these even include Twitter and social media, it'll send you a little list every day of all the places where you've been mentioned online or in the last week, or you can get real-time alerts if you want. And you can kind of keep an eye on what people are saying about you. A lot of times people will mention me in an article on some magazine or some online whatever, and they don't bother to say, hey, Stacey, I mentioned this cool thing about you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Sometimes I find out about it through some of these tools. So just to kind of own your brand a little bit, know what's being said, and kind of know when something good is being said, you can share it out, or you can, like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I had no idea. Say thank you, those sorts of things. Better to know about it than not know about it is the way I look at it. All right, so where do we share and engage? This is where the social media piece comes in. I know we're at 45 minutes right now. The rest of this is going to go kind of quick. So that was really the meat of it, what we just talked about. Blog, 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 blog. There is so much power in writing blog posts. I have to tell you, not until I started blogging did I really get into the thought of starting my own business or getting picked up to speak at conferences or, webinars. All this opportunity came about through blogging, and I can't recommend it enough. Share your thoughts. It's a great way to get your ideas out there. There's a number of free blogging platforms. You can start a blog. I have a free little blogger blog, my one that passed 1 million views. It's just a free blogger blog. It's nothing fancy. Medium is great. Tumblr, Squarespace, WordPress, LinkedIn Publisher. You can just publish posts on LinkedIn, and it will automatically go out to all of your first level connections on LinkedIn. If you really want to keep it simple, that's an easy way to do it. Get your feet wet, kind of dip your toe in the water, etc. Let's talk a little bit about the social channels as well. It's funny, there's 450 million people on LinkedIn, but only 100 million of them are active on a monthly basis. There's 1.6 billion people on Facebook, and almost all of them, 1.55 billion, are active on a monthly basis. In fact, people spend 17 minutes a month on LinkedIn, but 20 minutes a day on Facebook. So think a little bit about, where does your audience hang out? Maybe you need to start a Facebook page or something for your business or for whatever, or maybe you need to create lists with your Facebook friends, and all the work-related ones, you can share content with them, or I don't know, think about it. Again, be a little cautious sharing too much work stuff on Facebook. I think that can be off-putting. But which channels really resonate with you? If you're like, I don't understand Twitter, I'm doing it's going to die anyway. You're going to give up. So find the ones that really stick to you and really make sense and you feel at home. But don't be afraid to keep trying new things as well. I just got on Snapchat a few weeks ago. I'm 40 plus. I'm not really their demographic, and I love it. So don't be afraid to try new things. LinkedIn, I was one of the first members. I was an early adopter, and it led to a lot of kind of recognition and branding by being an early adopter. So when new things come out, don't be afraid to try those as well. But these are kind of a snapshot of how active those social sites are, and where those people are, and where your audience might be hanging out. If you have highly visual content, Instagram might be great. If you saw long form blog posts, so that, maybe Instagram isn't the place for you. So really think a little bit about these things. All right, we're going to blast through these pretty quick. Leave time for questions. I'm hoping to be done in the next 4 minutes or so, Paige, in case you're wondering.
All right, take that.
All right, there's 100 billion active monthly users, 450 million total. Here's some other stats. I don't usually read through these, but you're welcome to take a peek at them when you get a copy of the deck afterwards, which everyone will get. This video will also be available for replay. Of course, there's status updates. You can like, comment, and share. Did you know that every single time you like, comment, or share on anything, even if it's a comment or a like, it immediately goes out to every single one of your first level connections. So even if you see something that you think is dumb, oh, I'm tired of all these word puzzles and math problems on LinkedIn, rah. Did you know that everyone on your network just got a copy of that math problem or that word puzzle? Even if you commented something derogatory, it got shared by you. It says it right in the feed. So be really careful. Anytime you like or comment on something, it goes out to everyone in your network. That can be a positive, that can be a negative, so be very mindful of it. You can brand your profile. You can do video. You can do Word docs. You can do links to websites. You can all sorts of multimedia, blog posts, you name it. I always make sure that my profile is rich, full of multimedia, so that it's not just text on a page. It's really engaging and interactive and colorful and interesting. There are LinkedIn groups. I don't use LinkedIn groups, unfortunately, quite as much as I used to. They've gotten a little spammier for me. I tend to do all my networking in Facebook groups these days. But again, a lot of people love them. Like, comment, share. Back in the day, I used them very heavily, and it was really great. LinkedIn Publisher, as I mentioned, is their blogging platform. I shared this blog post. I've had so many people reach out about it and tell me like what it meant to them. And I mean, it's amazing the reach that these things can have. So go out and write a blog post, even if you think it's horrible. Have a friend read it or proofread it or critique it for you, and then put it out there. See what happens. Can't hurt. Twitter. 320 million active monthly users. There's a billion total users on Twitter. A lot of people love it. It's a micro-blogging site. You've got 140 characters to tell your story. They're about to change some things around that to make it a little bit longer. Of course, there are tweets. Again, you can like, you can reply, you can retweet. There are lists. Here's one that JT, who just did a webinar yesterday, she created a list of people in employer branding. That's what I do. And all these people, I found new people to follow. You can see the whole list of people. You can also click to the tweets, which is right above where on the left-hand side here, that top one there, it says tweets. On the left-hand column there. And if you click that, you can read all the tweets shared by those people. You can easily retweet them, share their content with other people, and get their attention and or share good content and reinforce your brand. Big fan of lists. Facebook, 1.6 billion monthly active users now. I can update that. It's gone up a little bit. Or 1.5 billion active, 1.6 total. There it is. It's actually technically correct. A lot of millennials are actually on it, even though everyone says it's going downhill. They actually are still using it, maybe a little less than before, 20 minutes a day. Of course, there's status updates. You can share stuff on Facebook. There's groups. I love Facebook groups. I have 5 that I check all day, or I'll check them every day at least. If I have questions, I ask questions. If I know an answer, I share it. Knowledge sharing, answering, networking, new jobs. I need to hire someone. I'm looking for a job. I guarantee you there are several groups that in whatever industry or whatever discipline you're in that are highly valuable for networking. If you have not checked out Facebook groups, I absolutely recommend that you do so first thing. Really, really powerful networking and branding tool. Facebook Live, there's new video, live video. I think it's pretty fun. A lot of people are playing around with it. I'm too chicken, I'm camera shy. I hate actually getting videoed like this. Glad I have slides that you all can look at instead. But a lot of people are doing cool stuff with Facebook Live. Instagram for visual content. Quite a few monthly active users there, a much younger population. Instagram posts, you can share all sorts of fun stuff, caption it. Love Instagram, it's so pretty to look at. Snapchat, I just got on there, yes. Finally, I'm closer to 50 than I am 30, but here I am on Snapchat and already highly addicted. A lot of fun, really, really fast growth here. So something to think about. But again, be careful. I know that people aren't supposed to screenshot what you share there, but be careful, they still technically can. And there are apps that might circumvent it. I don't know, I've heard rumblings. This was my second snap ever. It's a little bit of a fun side. It's not really the professional me, but kind of showed a little bit that I like to have a little fun and do something silly. So Snapchat, check it out. All sorts of fun filters. There are social sharing tools where you can push out content to your audience, listen to what they're having to say. There's Buffer. You can check these out. Hootsuite. And there's also automation tools that will automatically push out your favorite blogs to your Twitter or your Facebook or your LinkedIn automatically. Be careful with this one. Just because it's Mashable, you think it's safe. I had a friend automatically posting Mashable articles to her Twitter, and there was one all about, you know, male anatomy, something quiz, something BuzzFeedy, and it was not in support of her brand. I saw it before she did, alerted her. She was mortified. She took it down and turned off the feed of Mashable automatically to her Twitter. Be careful with this one. And this tool is a little bit old school looking Twitter feed. Their UI isn't very pretty, but it works like a charm. I've been using it for years. I guarantee you during the time that I've been on this webinar, I've sent a few tweets out. So it's a little bit of a cheat. I automate a little bit of my content, but I never automate my engagement. That's always manual. That's always me saying thank you and stuff. That's actual real live stuff. And if you really want to up your game, don't limit yourself to just social media. As I mentioned, start that blog. I started writing my own blogs. Then I got invited by several industry articles or industry blogs saying, hey, would you blog for us, Stacy? I'm like, absolutely. Then I got invited to start speaking on stage. And then now it's bigger stages. Now I'm getting paid to speak on stage. This is amazing. Now it's led to a business. These are kind of the baby steps that I took. Your path might be different, but I guarantee blogging is sort of this gateway. And if you do want to get into the speaking or running your own business someday, it's amazing stuff. Start small. Start at like a little internal company event or go to a local meetup group and speak there or share stuff there. Kind of work your way up there. I just kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool and figured it out as I learned how to swim. And just to wrap up, things to remember, it is a long-term game. You don't build a brand overnight. Don't change a brand or amplify a brand overnight. It takes a while to grow your followers. It takes a while to kind of get in the rhythm, to consistently share content. It's a series of impressions over time, so be patient and work at it. I should note you already do have a personal brand, whether you own it or do anything with it or not. Everyone has one. It's up to you whether or not you want to nurture it, shape it, do anything with it. And then, again, that reminder of personal branding and self-promotion, they're not one and the same. I know there was a webinar earlier this week as part of this LinkedIn Influencer series where someone talked about that as well. Good stuff. Great reminder. It's all about adding value, giving back to your network, not all about just taking, and tooting your own horn all the time. And this article just came out this morning. I had to quote it because I thought it really reinforced that point and a lot of the things I've talked about today. I don't normally put this much text on a page, bear with me. But Tony Restel, I'm not sure if you know how to pronounce his name. I've known him online for a long time. I have never met him in person. He wrote a blog post today about people who've influenced him in social media. He mentioned me and a couple of other people, warmth that he feels, etc. But this is the part I thought really resonated and drove the point home. It helps, of course, that all three of them share insights that are highly informative and valuable for their followers. It helps that all of them are givers, constantly giving their followers more than they expect from them in return. But more than anything, it's the fact that they all come across as real people that you feel a bond with, and that's where the real magic comes from. I was so humbled and so oh my gosh, I definitely awed out loud when I read that. Amazing, it's all about giving back. I named my company Tenfold because I believe whatever you put out into the universe will come back to you tenfold. I absolutely believe that. So the more you can give back and help other people and share with them, if someone asks for a favor on social, if you have a little time, help them out. I'm taking 2 calls tomorrow for people who are looking for jobs just to help critique their resume, give them some interview tips. I don't really even know them that well. Or I've met them online or what have you. So if you can, take a little time to give back to your network and help them out. That's really what the end of the day, that's part of your brand. How do people feel when they engage with you, not just what content you're sharing? So be mindful of that. So that's pretty much it for me when it comes to social media branding, personal branding through social media. I hope that was helpful for you. Do we have any questions, Paige?
Awesome. So thank you so much, Stacey. You did a great job. And we've got tons of questions coming in either through the Q&A box and the chat. So we're going to try to cover most of them by what's been most relayed.
I went a little long. I had a feeling I would just keep
No, you're fine. All good information. So let's see. Where should we start? Should you commit to a theme when you're blogging or doing certain types of posts? Or how do you recommend switching it up every once in a while?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily limit yourself to one theme. I'm going to turn my notifications here off. One theme, like I said, you can have 4 or 5 different themes that you talk about consistently and push that out there. I mean, if you're talking about something really controversial or political or religious or, you're part of PETA or you're anti-GMO or something that's in any way that might be off-putting, you may not want to blend that in with all your regular content, of course, on social channels or in your blog. But absolutely, I used to blog a little bit about slightly more personal stuff, what I learned by starting my own business or something like that. And then maybe it's more content focused on a specific audience. But just the way you can mix up your content on social, you can do that in your blog as well. Just, maybe a little bit less on the personal stuff, right?
Okay. What are your thoughts on paying to promote Facebook? Like post on Facebook to promote them and doing it for a business page. Does it ever come across fake, or what are your best tips?
No, I think, paid advertisements for a business are great. It might look a little cheesy to promote in some way something that's really very personally serving, but for businesses, paid ads and boosting posts, absolutely, especially on Facebook these days, it's more of a pay-to-play game. You don't get as much organic reach as you used to. It's almost one of those things where you kind of have to pay in order to be seen by all your followers. That's sort of their business model and the way that things are trending. So absolutely. Again, this is more of a personal brand webinar, so I didn't talk much about that.
That's okay, no problem. Have you ever come across, personally, this one's from Tammy, any copywriting issues when people are using your photos or sharing your content? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I've had many times, well, I wouldn't say many, but many times I've had people take my content, put it out on their blog, and sometimes they mention my name in small print in the bottom, sometimes they don't. I do have photographer friends who've had their pictures kind of poached and not credited and these sorts of things. You have to be kind of careful about that. We're all kind of guilty of doing Google image searches and finding images. I mean, I've used a lot of images in here and I didn't credit every single one with who the photographer was. So again, you know, it's a little bit tricky, but yeah, blatantly people stealing other people's content, it does happen. And I know that's part of the reason that people
Sorry, excuse me.
It's okay. Bless you. These social listening tools, sometimes they go out and they kind of listen for the words that they use in their blog and then they find this. But yeah, Google will penalize your blog if the same content is posted in other places. It'll ding it down sometimes and not show up in the search results. So you absolutely want to curtail that everywhere you can. Even if they credit me, I don't want them to take my exact blog post and put it up on their site ever. So yeah, this stuff does happen. So unfortunately, but yeah, how I've handled it is I just usually send them a little note like, hey, thanks so much, I really appreciate it. And I kind of explain the Google search results, you know, impact, and I would really appreciate it if you would kind of pull that down. Maybe you can write a little summary of the article in your own words and link over to it. That would be fine, and I really appreciate it, something like that.
Sure, that's definitely a fair way to reach out to them.
But everyone's been great about it. I've never had to, like, you know, get a cease and desist or knock it off letter or lawyers. I just send a little note and they're usually very kind about it. So
yeah. All right, and our last question, what is your go-to magic number for amounts of posts a day on different sites and not to seem spammy?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, Facebook maybe, and I usually don't do more than one a day on Facebook for my personal stuff. Sometimes I'll do 2. Twitter, the sky's the limit. I really don't think it matters if you do 5 or 10 or 15. I really don't think it matters on Twitter because it's just a noisy place and people don't read every single thing anyway. So I'm not too worried about limits on Twitter. I probably post around 10 times a day on Twitter, even if it's just like, thanks, you know, 10 to 15 probably is more realistic. LinkedIn, you know, I don't know, it's up to you. Status updates, again, maybe 1 or 2 a day. It's really, you know, you can Google this stuff, and there's Buffer wrote a really great post about this. If you Google like personal brand on social media, Buffer comes up on page 1. There's an article, and they actually have some suggestions of how many times on each site. And really, I've read through it. I'm like, I actually agree with that one. I see these things all the time, but that one I thought was really accurate. And tools like Buffer will tell you what time of day your audience is online and when they're more likely to engage. There's a free algorithm. So tools that do social sharing and scheduling will actually take some of that guesswork out and kind of help you a little bit develop your social sharing strategy.
Sure, that's awesome. Well, Stacey, thank you so much for chatting with us today. We loved having you on LinkedIn Influencers Week.
Thank you. It's a fun way to wind up the week here and get ready to go into the weekend. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share some screens with you guys, and I posted some links in the chat. But as you guys can see, if you love this content and you've tuned in either one day this week or all 4 days, you can help us keep it free in the future by considering making a gift to Longwood University. You can find that at give.longwood.edu/events. That helps keep this content free. We're able to share it out with you guys and talk to these amazing speakers. Also, if you are a Longwood alumni or a Lancer at heart, you can feel free to join us on the 1 hour a month program. So you can be an alumni ambassador and show your love for Longwood, whether that's taking a picture when you're on vacation or making that connection with a student or fellow alumni at your workplace. And finally, if you did miss any of the speakers earlier in the week, or if you just want to catch Stacey's presentation again, you can find it on our Career Chats live page on our university page. So once again, my name is Paige Rollins from Longwood University. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you guys want. Stacey, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. That was fun.
Absolutely. Bye, guys. See you later.